Hey my glam girls, welcome back to my channel. It's Chelsea, and first off, happy Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So thankful and grateful for his sacrifices and his courageous effort to not give up on what was right, standing up for what was right and fighting for us as a people. Even though it cost him his life, I'm so thankful for what he's done, because without him and what he stood for, I would not be here. Many of you all would not be here and have the rights and the liberties that we do. So I'm so thankful for him, and I just want to honor his life today and, you know, just always remember what he did for us. So I have my ranking video. Here are my palettes. You hear them? Today we're going to rank my Pat McGrath Mothership palettes. I feel like 95% confident in my ranking. It's two palettes that I just keep it's two palettes that literally just go like this. I will explain about them when I get there. If you don't know, I did a series of looks with all 8 Mothership palettes. I will link it down below for you so you can check them out. I showed you all a tutorial of me using the palette and just shared my own thoughts about the palette, what I liked about it. And in this video, we're just gonna rank it, and I'm gonna tell you why I ranked each Mothership palette where they are ranked at. But before we get into this video, because I do want to get into this video, but before we get there, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and spending some time with me. If this is your first time here, I'd love for you to stick around and subscribe to my channel and join the Glam Girl Squad. And if you are a returning subscriber, well, thank you so much for deciding to come back and support my channel with all of your likes and your comments. They truly do mean a lot to me. So let's get into this video. The outfit of the day is a t-shirt that was created by a young Black female artist. She attends Howard University. And if you weren't aware, Target came out with a collaboration with I think they're all college-aged artists, and they came out with a Black History Month collection of t-shirts and sweatshirts and dresses, and I've ordered a couple more pieces, so I'll share them with you when I get them. This is actually a men's t-shirt that says "Enough is Enough," and I felt like this was so appropriate for Martin Luther King's birthday, because Martin had enough and was like, I'm fighting for justice. But I love this t-shirt. It retails, I think it was only like $13. And I just think I just love the message behind it. And the t-shirt is actually really comfy and cozy as well. And then my leggings are from Old Navy. They have this cute little pattern right here. Very stretchy, cozy, and comfy. And these are some of my favorite earrings from Amazon. I think they're around $13. So I'll make sure to link the shirt, the leggings, and my earrings down below. Okay, let's get into it. So starting with number 8, we have Midnight Sun Mothership 6. So if you saw my tutorial on this video, you could probably already tell this was not my favorite one. And I actually did say this is not one of my favorite Mothership palettes. Now, before I get into that, this palette is beautiful. I think it's gorgeous. It was actually the first palette that I purchased. I love the earthy tones in this particular palette. And I think this is such a really good, everyday, approachable palette. I feel like this one is not intimidating, and it's got some beautiful, beautiful colors in this palette. However, it for some reason doesn't speak to me. Like, I look at this palette and I'm like, ooh, yes, I'm gonna love it. And then I just don't use it. This particular shade right here, Blitz Violet Orchid, I was disappointed in this particular shade because I thought it was going to just come out like her normal Blitz formula, just like so impactful on the eye. And it's actually not as impactful as I initially thought it would be off of first application. This is more of a buildable formula, which for some people that's great. Some people don't want that like wham bam in your face right off the bat type of pigmentation. So I tend to call this palette her buildable palette, because most of the shades, except for like, you know, these astral shades right here, they are more buildable, and they're not going to like overwhelm the eye if you don't want them to. I think it's beautiful. I highly recommend it, but for some reason, she just doesn't speak to me, and that's why she's number 8. Number 7, we have Sublime. So I like to call Sublime Mother's everyday palette. I feel like this is like the perfect everyday type of palette. You've got a little bit of like color here to kind of jazz it up when you want to, but the rest of the colors are just very neutral. They're very approachable. This is more of a warm toned palette, so if you're into cooler tones, this may not be the palette that really speaks to you, but nothing about this palette is overly intimidating or kind of scary. And I think the formula of it is really beautiful. Like if I want to go for a nice, like quick little springy daytime look, I'm definitely going to reach for this palette. I love this green color. Blitz Emerald, oh, it is so beautiful in its formulation. I love the duochrome with it. And I really enjoy using this palette. I also like that this palette does come with this black color as well, because you can make more smoky looks with this palette if you want to. Or like I said, it could be so appropriate for just everyday work types of looks. It's coming in at number 7 because even though I really enjoy this palette, I do put it at number 7 because I like it and I love it, but that's pretty much where it finishes. It's like, I love Sublime, I think it's great, and then that's it. So it is a palette that I do reach for, but it's just not gonna, you know, when I look at the other Mothership palettes, I can't put this one over the ones that I have remaining. So that's why she's at number 7, but I highly recommend Sublime. Number 6, Subliminal. Let me just tell you, I call this Mother's Pleasant Surprise Mothership palette. This is Mothership 1, and I was just like so blown away when I first tried it. So this one, I remember looking at it and being like, I have to get this palette for Blitz Blue. I am a lover of blue eyeshadows. Like Sapphire is my birthstone month, so I'm like naturally attracted to just blue eyeshadows. But the rest of the palette, just looking at it, looked so dull to me. And then it is more of a cool toned palette. And so I was just like, I mean, am I even gonna really get some use out of it? Like, but I knew I wanted it, but I was like, this is gonna be one of the very last palettes I get. And in actuality, it was one of the very last palettes that I got. I was actually gifted this palette for my birthday recently. And when I tried it, I was like, why did I sleep on you? You guys, the look that I created when I did the tutorial for this palette is still one of my favorite looks that I created almost out of all of these Mothership palettes. This palette is stunning. So once again, like I said, it does pull more cool tone on the eye, but you have shades like this called VR Violet that it can be used more so with cool tone looks, but then you can also, but it's not too cool in terms of the color. I think it's a really good neutral mixture of like that pink fuchsia color to that blue color. I'm hoping you guys can see the shift. And we have Pale Gold 002, which I don't want to swatch all these palettes because I feel like I'm just going to spend too much time swatching. But like it said, it's a pale gold, but as you can see, it does pull a little warmer. It's not so cool tone. Let's swatch this one, VR Violet. Like, oh, did you see the juiciness from this palette? She's incredible. And then of course, Blitz Blue, because I just have to. Blitz Blue just is, it is probably one of my favorite shades out of all of the Mothership palettes. It's just, the blue is just stunning. This palette is gorgeous. It's at 6 for the same reason that Sublime is at 7. Like, I couldn't put this over the other remaining palettes, but by God, it is not a 6 because of performance, formula, shades are dull. It's not a 6 because of that. Because she's gorgeous, like she's gorgeous. Number 5, we have Subversive. So this is the palette that I like to call like, don't be scared because she's gonna come for you. In the sense of, this palette is so bold, so dramatic, and I love it. There is no subtleness about this palette. This palette is not for the weak at heart. This palette is for the one who wants the drama on the eyes, who loves those like smoky, sultry looks, who's not afraid of color, and who wants to make a bold statement. That is what Subversive is, Mothership 3, and I love her for that. Every time I use this palette, I'm like, Step out of your comfort zone, Chelsea. Make combinations that you might not normally make and make it bold, make it fierce, and come for it. And that's why I love this palette, because not all of my makeup makes me feel that way. And for lack of better terms, when I want to be a bad, you know what, Subversive helps me get there. Sometimes we need the makeup to do that. And so I love Subversive for that. I feel like it's just stunning. And then you do still have shades in here that you can put together for more like, you know, maybe tapered down looks. So for instance, sometimes I'll go in with deep shade right here, and then I'll pair it with Lazarus, and then take a little bit of Skin Show Fever, and you get a more subtle type of look, one that I could easily wear to work, or for more like softer daytime looks. And then of course, like amp it up in the evening or when I want the drama. So this palette can do both, but you're not gonna get, you know, as much of the subtle looks with this one, just because of the color combinations that Mother put in this palette. But I absolutely adore it. The only shade in this palette that I think is a little like just slightly lackluster would be Black Metal. This one I do find that I have to build up. I don't know if it's just hard pressed in the pan or if the formulation of the eyeshadow is just not as pigmented. This one almost pulls like an eyeshadow topper, if you will. So, and that's with me like rubbing my finger in the palette and then swiping it. So, I mean, this one I can build the shade up. I do wish it was more impactful, and I do wish I didn't have to build it up as much, because it's really, really pretty, but it just is not gonna come out the gate like some of the other ones. But the other shades I totally adore, I'm here for, and like so happy with Subversive. Okay, number 4 is Your Highness, Your Royalty, Decadent. Oh, I call this the Mothership palette that breaks all the rules, because she is full of shimmers. We see no matte shades. We don't see her Blitz formula. We don't see her Astral shades. It's a beautiful shimmer formula that blends effortlessly. So you can do complete eye looks with this entire palette. You can put these shimmers in the crease. They don't make you look like you've got too much shimmer on the lid. They blend out so well, and even the colors are just so complementary to each other. This palette just speaks royalty, and why not? I mean, it is. This packaging is a limited edition packaging, so it's not available now, but the gold packaging does not help to make it even more like royal-like. I love the blues in this palette. Lapis Luxury is one of my favorites. I told you guys I love blues. I love blues and pinks. Then we have Underworld. I have to swatch these because they're just so pretty. And then my absolute favorite shade in this palette, Sterling. This silver is a legit one and done eye look. Like, you put it on the eye, blend it into the crease, and you would be surprised how this looks on the eye. Just one and done. It's phenomenal. It's just phenomenal. Absolutely love this one. Mothership 4, number 4 spot. I mean, I think it just fits beautifully right there. Down to the last 3. So before we get to the last 3, I want you to pause the camera. Tell me what you think my number 1 palette is. Tell me, because I want to know. Every comment that is left, if you decide to leave one, I want to know what you thought my number 1 would be. Because we're getting down to the part where you're gonna figure it out based on who's at 3 and who's at 2. So number 3, oh, I just don't have words for her. She was my first Mothership palette ever. Mothership 5 Bronze Seduction. Like, a tear wants to come to my eyes when I think about her. So this palette I got for Christmas a few years ago, and it was my first introduction to the Mothership palette world. And I remember like immediately falling in love and being like, okay, I get now why people love these palettes. I get now why they are $125. Like, yes, that's expensive and it's quite insane to say out loud, but I get it. For a very long time, this was my favorite palette. No ifs, ands, or buts. Like, there was never a question. What's your favorite Mothership palette? Bronze Seduction. Like, no hesitation. My favorite shade in this palette is this shade right here. Rose Gold 005. I mean, the pink in The formulation of this pink shade, the actual color of this pink shade just speaks to my heart, my literal heart. It is my favorite pink eyeshadow that I own. I can comfortably say that. This palette is a no-fail palette for me. This is my everyday palette in the sense of like, it's got the warm tones that I enjoy. It's got the pops of color that I enjoy. This red shade is phenomenal and it's beautiful. So here's where she went from 1 to 3. The formulation of this palette is not nearly as beautiful and flawless as the formulation of my #1 palette. Okay, hear me out. First, with this red shade, Blitz Flame, for some reason, it always creases on my eye, no matter what primer I use, no matter if I use like an eye kohl underneath. For some reason, it just creases, and I have never understood it. I'm just chalking it up to the formula and my eyes just being, you know, crinkly, but it creases on my eyes. So as much as I think this shade is beautiful, I don't wear it nearly as much because it creases on me. Then with Disobedient, the formulation of this particular matte is so dry. Extreme Aubergine is also very dry as well in terms of the matte formulations, but this one is just even more dry, and it does take some elbow grease to blend in these two shades on my eyes because they're so dry in formulation. I enjoy the color of these shades, but they're just really dry. And this is not because I've had this one the longest. Even when I first started using it, I was just kind of like, okay, the mattes are okay, but like the star of the show obviously are going to be the shimmers. So the matte shades don't blend nearly as well as the matte shades in what my #1 palette is for me. But outside of those flaws, this palette is just a dream. I would recommend this palette as your first Pat McGrath palette if you are somebody who loves, like, I don't want to go for something too dramatic. I don't want to go for something like a little too simple or too everyday, like Bronze Seduction. You cannot go wrong. It is an Allure favorite and a fan favorite for a reason. It's just spectacular. Down to the last two. And like I said in the beginning of my video, these two palettes legit go like this. Like one is on top one day, the other one's on top the other day, then the other one gets on top. I still like, I'm pretty confident in my #1 choice, but I'm also like, oh, but I just love the other one too. But I have settled on this, and I'm going to stay with this because I literally sat, I looked at the palette. I'm wearing one of the palettes on my eyes, but I'm wearing some of the other one on my eyes too. And I was just like, okay, let's take my emotions out because I am emotional. Take the emotion out, look at the facts. Look at the one that really makes you go, you are the better one across the board. Formula-wise, color scheme-wise, wearability-wise, meaning like I can wear these all over the face and not just on the eyes. Like I took it into all of that. And here we are. Coming in at #2 is the beautiful Divine Rose Mothership 7. So here's the thing. I am wearing primarily all Divine Rose on my eyes. Divine Rose was the palette that had a little bit of controversy about her because I remember when she first launched, it was only launched in the UK and then it sold out right away. And then she came back, sold back out right away. And then when I found out she was coming back in this limited edition packaging, I was like, now's the time to get it. Now's the time to get it. I sat on it because I was like, this is just a cool tone, basic palette. Like, you don't really wear cool tones a lot, Chelsea, and you know, you'll get it, just not right away. And when I finally used it, I was like, I'm so in love with you. I'm so in love with you. Okay, so let's talk about some quick flaws. Quick flaws is this palette does have 3 repeat shades. And we have Skin Show Nude. This is going to be in Subliminal Mothership 1. Then we have Rose Dusk, which is going to be in Sublime Mothership 2. And then we have Astral Solstice, which is going to be in Midnight Sun Mothership 6. So in terms of like uniqueness of the palette, some view that as not being unique. I'm paying $125, but if I have, you know, those other palettes, I'm getting repeat shades. The way that I see it is, I'm actually glad. Astral Solstice is by far, let me swatch it for you, one of my top favorite shades of all of Motherships. It's just so stunning in its color, formulation. Like, I can wear this shade as a highlighter, or I can just wear it as inner corner highlight. I'm actually wearing it as inner corner highlight on my eyes today. Cannot get enough of it. Rose Dust, like, are you kidding me? VR Rose Venus, I mean, she is phenomenal. She's gorgeous. Another just beautiful pink gold type of shade that looks so beautiful on the eyes. I could sing this palette's praises. And then for it to be cool toned, it doesn't pull so cool that if you are not a true cool toned lover, you still can't enjoy this palette. I say that this palette leans more cool to neutral, and the looks that I'm able to create with this palette is just phenomenal. I can get more warm toned looks if I want to, or I can get more cooler tone looks, or I can get neutral looks. I think this is by far another everyday type of palette from Pat McGrath. So if you are someone who likes more just subtle shades, I like things to be a little basic, nothing that's gonna ruffle the feathers, I think Mothership 7, you have Midnight Sun, Mothership 6, and then also Sublime, Mothership 2. Those are your top 3 to really look into to see which one would fit better for you. But like, every time I use this palette, I'm like, you're just amazing. And that's why there are times where I've been like, oh my gosh, Divine Rose 1 is my absolute favorite Mothership palette. But at this point, we all know who's number 1. When Mother came out with Divine Rose 2, I said, WTF. This palette immediately knocked Bronze Seduction out of number 1 for me, like immediately. And I just was like, first of all, the formula of this palette is by far the best formula, in my opinion, out of all of the Mothership palettes. All of them. Hands down, no questions asked. These mattes blend so well that they can be used as blushes. I'm wearing Naked Blush today as a blush on my cheeks. Extreme Burgundy, I wouldn't per se wear it as a blush, but if you have a deeper complexion, you most definitely could wear it as a blush, because the formulation of these mattes, they just blend like a dream. She needs to keep this matte formula in all of her future Mothership palettes if she's gonna come out with more. Even with the shimmers, like the shimmers just blend like butter. And I was so impressed with the formulation. Even with this Astral shade, Astral Pink Moon, if you've ever felt any of the other Astral shades, they've almost got like, I don't want to say crunchy feel to them, but you feel the texture, and it's not the smoothest, like just rubbing your fingers together. This feels like butter, but you still get like the Astral pigmentation, the bling, just the like I can recognize you from a mile away type of look. You still get all of that, but the formulation is just immaculate. And then she said, let's take it up a notch. Let's not just give you all of this pretty pinkness. Let's throw in there a Triochrome. And when we get into VR Sextraterrestrial, first of all, the name in and of itself, I was like, I'm gonna love it. I don't care what it looks like. But this shade, in my opinion, yes, I know that there are other indie brands that have been doing this for years, but I love Pat McGrath, so I want her to do it. And that shade is like, she just does it for me every time. And the way that it looks on the eye when you're just turning your head and talking, it captures the room and reels you in and makes you go like, what is on your eyes? Like, what someone's gonna ask, what is on your eyes when you're wearing it? Rose Seduction is another beautiful shade for blush, and I like to wear this one when I want more of a shimmer blush. So I'll either wear this just all over the cheeks, or I'll just like pop it on the center of the cheeks. But when I sat down and thought, because I was like, it keeps coming back between Divine Rose and Divine Rose 2. I said with Divine Rose, and I forgot to mention to you all, I'm wearing Iridescent Pink 003 on the apples of my cheeks as my highlight and right here on my nose, just if you were wondering. But when it came down to these two, I kept just saying, oh wait, it's Divine Rose. No, it's Divine Rose too. And I couldn't, like, I just still couldn't choose. And when it came down to formulation and which palette like I could use for a full face, it wasn't a question at all. I said, Divine Rose 2 wins, hands down. It's just the best palette, in my opinion, that Mother has made. And so, guys, that is it. That is my ranking video. I'm so happy to have done this. I feel complete. I feel complete that I've named it, that I've said this is my #1 palette. I didn't want to because I didn't want anybody to feel left out. But just looking at them, playing around with them lately, I'm like, this is what it is. So I hope that you enjoyed it. Did you guess the right one? Are you shocked too? Because I've seen other people's ranking videos and sometimes their #1 does shock me because I'm like, oh man, I thought they would have liked this over that. So let me know all of your thoughts down below. I'd love to hear it. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. I hope that you all enjoyed this series. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope to see you in my very next video. Bye, guys.